welcome everyone. Thank you to everyone who's joined. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. My name's Bukola Bayo Yusuf. I'm one of the co-founders of Excellerate Black Futures. Just a few housekeeping rules before I dive straight in, just to let you know that this session is being recorded. So from a data privacy point of view, it is being recorded, and we've got the chat function. So all throughout the session, if you want to pop your questions in there, please do so, and we will take that at the right portion of the session. So housekeeping over. Really excited today. Again, thank you for joining us. Accelerate Black Futures is so excited to partner with the Circle of Intrapreneurs today. And I'm sure people are wondering, what is intrapreneurship? It's probably not got as much airtime as it should, but it's really exciting and has so many advantages. So we're going to be talking a lot more around that today. And just before we dive in, I would just like to introduce Excellerate and what we do. This is our third event and the second in our inspirational series, and I'll talk a little bit about that as we go along. And just to let you know that Excellerate Black Futures kicked off in January of this year, and our main focus is to enhance the narrative around young Black talent, and our key mission is to educate Black professionals, so 0 to 5 years in their careers, students, graduates, really focused on equipping them with practical tools, providing role models that they can look up to, that will really do two key things to help them excel in their careers, as well as accelerate their development in their careers as well. And we do this through a few initiatives. So we've got our group talent program, which I'll talk a little about, our scale up events, to which this is one of them, online engagement and bespoke partnerships with organizations. And the key things that we're wanting to drive is to educate. Like I said, I'm really keen on making sure that young Black talent are equipped with knowledge, with expertise, so that they can excel in their workplace. We're really keen on displaying role models so they can inspire confidence in our young Black talent, so that they can go away and do really well in their careers. Practical tools, so we're not just kind of throwing information at you, we're giving you practical tools and hints and tips that you can go and do in your own careers. And we're really keen on giving back. So a lot of the people that we give the platform to talk to from an inspirational point of view are giving back, and it's a real stream in all of the things that we do. And we're hoping that as you grow in your careers and become quite senior, you will continue to give back and share that confidence with other young talent coming, and keeping the door wide open. So if I talk a little bit about our group talent program, which is kicking off next month, it's a 6-week program, groups of about 12 to 15 people. There's pre-work, post-work, and this is where we focus and hone in on some of those practical tips and hints and practical tools that you can use in your career. So it covers things like being the CEO of your career. We talk about personal branding. What does that mean from a virtual standpoint? So for example, the event we've got next month is around virtual, visibility, and we cover that in the session as well. We talk about mentoring and coaching, the art of public speaking, and the idea is we've bottled a lot of the key skills that we feel that young Black professionals need in their careers, and we talk through that. And there's lots of peer mentoring and peer coaching going on, reverse mentoring. So we cover a lot of things in the group talent program. So that's one of our streams. And then we also focus on scale up events. So they're two-pronged approach. So we kicked off with our inspirational series in January, and this is the second of them. And it's to bring to you professionals who are at the top of their game, who can share some of the key things that they've done in their careers to make them successful. We also have educational series. So we had our first session last month, which was around performance management. All of our previous events are on our YouTube channel. If you head on to our website, accelerateblackfutures.com, all of our past events are on there that you can listen to. And the idea is from the educational series, you've got practical tools that you can take away, and from the inspirational series, you can see people who are living, you know, those tools and really excelling in their careers. So that's Accelerate Black Futures. I'm really keen and excited about what we're talking about today. And I've got Chris, who I will hand over to introduce us to the Circle of Intrapreneurship and tell us a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today.
Well, thanks very much, Bea and Winnie and the team at Accelerate Black Futures. I mean, before I sort of say anything, I just wanted to say how excited I've been for this event for a while. You know, since you guys got in touch with us and wanted to do something collaborative in this space and finding out a little bit more about Accelerate Black Futures and the amazing work that you guys are doing and looking to ramp up as well. Super important mission. So great to be associated with you. As just a way of introduction, for those who don't know me, my name is Chris Baker and I'm the Managing Director at Circle of Intrapreneurs. And I just wanted to spend a little bit of time, I guess, kind of, you might be thinking, well, who are the Circle and, you know, what do they do? But even more broadly, what is intrapreneurship? Now, I'm sure we're welcoming some of our own community and people who are quite familiar with the terms around intrapreneurship and specifically social intrapreneurship. But for others, it might be a totally new concept and one that isn't yet quite, I suppose, in the fully mainstream environment as common knowledge. So just want to take a little bit of time to explain sort of what intrapreneurship is to start with. So we like to kind of talk about it at the Circle as a bit of an equation, really. So if you think about your typical or your previous, or I suppose, kind of rudimentary innovation practices, typically businesses have been innovating since time began. New products manifested by either external pressures or something that's quite, you know, kind of. But increasingly, organizations are seeing the value or the importance of some of those ideas and some of that ability to scale up those initiatives coming from the people that they already employ. And those people can be from all over the business and within the organization, not necessarily devoted innovation experts or with the time to do that. They could be frontline workers, they could be people in various different enabling function kind of capacity around various different organizations. So it's about taking those people, plugging them into a culture of innovation, and then timesing that across the business. And what you end up with that, or what you end up from that kind of approach is loads of ideas and kind of initiatives coming out of the people that you already employ and support. And what that does for people who work for businesses is a great many things, because it, you know, engages people around a new idea. It gives them something to be passionate and kind of promote, and also develop their own skills and allow them to grow as an individual. For the business, there's that talent piece, but there's also you know, business cases and opportunities to grow what they do. So intrapreneurship is kind of a broadly, I think Wikipedia define it as the act of behaving like an entrepreneur whilst working within a large organization. And you know, as simplistic as that sounds, that really is what it says on the tin. And there's a lot of stuff out there to talk about around intrapreneurship. I mean, I guess to kind of like take it to the next step, and if you wouldn't mind just jumping onto the next slide, if that's possible. What do we really care about at the Circle? Now, intrapreneurship is fantastic, but intrapreneurship by itself is, you know, could be manifested in many different ways. Any kind of business initiative could be a product of intrapreneurship. But what we're really interested is in social intrapreneurship. And I think there's a bit of a trend at the moment to put sort of social in front of a lot of different things. But you know, it's there for a reason, and that is because for us, the most impactful way that businesses will solve society's problems moving forward, or will play a massive part in that, is to have social impact at the heart of all of these ideas. And what we're increasingly seeing is people who work at big organizations and just generally are more and more motivated by wanting to make a difference at work and in the organizations that they work for. So these people are the people that we might start calling social entrepreneurs. And yeah, there's a bit of a definition here. So passionate individuals, thinks like an entrepreneur, working inside a major organization already, and it could be of various different sizes. It doesn't have to be the biggest organization in the world, but embedded within an organization, who develops and delivers sort of innovative, profitable, and sustainable solutions that in some way solve the greatest challenges that we have to our society today, and also the opportunities that come around that, whether that's reducing inequality, promoting diversity and inclusion, which is obviously a very hot topic at the moment and will continue to be, as well as tackling climate change and other kind of social kind of issues and things that we see around us every day. So using business as the vehicle to do that, but in a sustainable manner, so that it becomes really engaging and interesting for the business to take forward, and doesn't just become something that they kind of do in the background. So social entrepreneurship is taking all that energy of people and putting it towards a really great idea. And I've always liked the analogy of, well, to break into a castle, you need people throwing things at the gates and, trying to charge up the walls. But often the easiest way to get into a castle is to sort of open it from the inside, to have someone on the inside doing all that work for you. And that's essentially what we'd like to see social entrepreneurs as, making change from the inside of organizations. So hopefully that will give you a bit of context about sort of why we exist and what we want to do. And if you mind just jumping to the next slide, what does the Circle do to promote that? So the Circle of Intrapreneurs was founded sort of five or 6 years ago now, with the mission to bring together that community of people who are doing great things within their organizations, and create a network. So we exist to sort of empower those people and drive that social impact through community building and networking, and kind of giving opportunities and offerings to various different people to, to kind of bring that together, but also stay engaged with their mission and their venture, bring it together to actually see it through to the end, get past those blockers that you'll always encounter within big organizations. It's often referred to as the corporate immune system, to overcome those challenges and actually see their product and their initiative kind of bear fruit. So we exist to support those people. We're a social venture in that regard, and we do that through thought leadership. We are organizing more and more development opportunities, and I'll come on to some of that in a second, and then our wider community and increasingly mentoring schemes that we're looking to roll out as well. Our membership is free. It doesn't cost anything to join. Anyone can be a member of the Circle. You can be somebody who's only just engaging with entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship, or somebody who's perhaps even launched their own initiative and has come out the other side. And we'd really value anybody who'd like to be part of our network and share their thoughts and help others through that process. We do have a big global footprint, so we operate across the world, and that's something that's we're really passionate about, because lots of different regions, lots of different challenges, lots of different ways to get involved with what we do. Just to sort of wrap it up before we hear some fantastic stories from three of the guys in a second. How else can you get involved? So I put some of our socials down there. Joining our movement is the simplest way. You find out more. Come to our events like we're doing here today, and it's great to see you on this call. But we regularly run events and other collaborations and stuff, and they're almost always kind of very, very simple to attend, and we'll run them obviously online for the foreseeable. But moving forward, we do a lot of kind of in-community events and face-to-faces within our regions as well. And then finally, just something to kind of throw out to you, we actually recently launched a program that we're calling the Social Innovation and Leadership Program, which is a practical way to build your leadership skills, particularly in the virtual world, but also work as a team to develop a social product that could be launched within your business. If that's something that's really, we're hoping that this is a great way to engage people around entrepreneurship, but also develop that leadership and kind of ways of delivering, which I'm sure is very important to lots of different groups at this present time. If that is of interest, it's a program that you can engage in, get your team together internally at work, and get in touch with us or with the leadership company who we're partnering with on that program. But hopefully a great way for you to get involved. And if you have any questions about or other things that you'd like to get involved about how you can join our movement, then I'm all ears for questions on that. But before any of that happens, I'm sure we'd all like to hear from our fantastic panel. So I'll throw it back over to the guys to introduce themselves and take you through the question and answer session.
Okay, fantastic. Great. Thank you so much, Chris. It's so good to hear an overview of Circle. I've been part of Circle since it launched right at the beginning, and I'm hugely passionate about intrapreneurship. So it's just such a great honor to have you with us and our amazing speakers as we talk about one of my favorite topics in the world. And for some people, like Dee said, it might be a completely new topic, in which case this is a great opportunity for you all to learn. But for some people, this is building on your skill set and hearing about new experiences. I'm very delighted to introduce our speakers who will be sharing their experiences with intrapreneurship with you today. I'm going to go ahead and introduce everyone one by one, because they've done so amazing that they deserve, I can't speak English today, they deserve all the accolades. So I'm going to try and do their introductions justice, just so you can see the amazing caliber of speakers that we've got with us today. So we've got Odubajo, who is a customer and digital manager at KPMG. He's also the co-lead of KPMG's reverse mentoring program, and he owns the origination and delivery of KPMG's inaugural Black Entrepreneurs Award, which is just so amazing to hear. And for our audience, it's just phenomenal to see what a great impact that you're making in the organization. He's also One Young World ambassador, as am I, so One Young World alumni, whoop, whoop. And he's also giving keynote speeches at the summit at The Hague in 2018 and also in London in 2019 to inspire 1,800 young adults and youth attendees to take social change into their own hands. And for those who don't know about One Young World, it invites delegates from 190 countries all around the world to come together. So it's such an amazing platform to be able to speak at. But Ollie also hosts, as if he's not busy enough, he also hosts the Not Your Everyday podcast, which invites some of the UK's most influential leaders to answer questions about how we can all become authentic leaders. So thank you so much for being with us today, Ollie. I'd also like to introduce Yemi. He's also part of the phenomenal team at Circle. He's the regional director for EMEA at Circle of Intrapreneurs, and is also the trustee of the RSA and also a future trainee solicitor at Clifford Chance. He founded a social enterprise called Project Access Midlands, which fights inequalities in higher education by widening access to top UK universities for untraditional students. He's also a coordinator at the Big Voice London, which is an independent social mobility charity supported by the UK Supreme Court, and continues to empower young people from disadvantaged backgrounds into a legal career. He's also an advisory board member at the Youth Futures Foundation, and supports young people who are furthest away from the labour market into sustained and meaningful employment, and also has been identified by Google as top Black talent and by UNDP as an SDG global talent. So once again, take a breath, because so many amazing achievements there, but it's lovely to welcome you as well, Yemi. Thank you for making the time to join us today. And last but not the least, we've got the phenomenal Maya Welford, who is a global wellbeing manager at a leading global bank. She's got degrees in psychology and also an MSc in corporate responsibility and sustainability, and is also a Rising Star Award winner at We Are the City. So once again, both We Are the City alums. So well done, Maya, congratulations. She's also engaging in multiple extracurricular endeavors, including setting up and leading a mentoring program as part of Barclays Gender Network, which we'll talk about a little bit today, but also runs the social mobility pillar for the LMF network, which is a great network, and everyone should look that up if you haven't heard of it already, but is also an advisory group member for the Early Careers Foundation. So lovely to have you, Maya. And for anyone who's not connected to Maya on LinkedIn, you absolutely should. She's got a really phenomenal piece of research on AI there that everyone needs to read. So just a little plug from me there, Maya. I'm a huge fan of all three of you and your amazing achievements. And I'm sure I join everyone on the call in being really excited to hear about what you have to share today. So I'm going to delve right in and go straight in with a question. I'd love to hear from each of you around what intrapreneurship means to you. I know Chris has already talked about the overview of intrapreneurship from the Circle point of view, but maybe let's start with Maya. How would you describe entrepreneurship, and what's your journey been like over time?
Yeah, definitely. And hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. It's lovely to spend my evening with you all. So what does intrapreneurship mean to me? I think quite similar to what Chris was speaking about, and I'm happy to kind of bring it to life with the example of the mentoring program that I set up at work. But for me, it's really about building something within the company that you work for that's kind of beyond your core role, beyond your day role. And I think through that, you can really gain a lot of skills. beyond what you may get through your kind of day role. So for me, I set up a mentoring program within my company's gender network. But this mentoring program is a bit different. So we actually connect employees at my company with employees at charities. And I kind of had the idea of, you know, charities do such amazing work, but actually, like, they don't necessarily have much training budgets, whereas within the corporate world, we have so much access to resources and training and so on. So I thought, why not connect kind of my company with the charity sector and offer some of those skills, and that way, if we're supporting the employees, then hopefully that's going to have a trickle-down effect on the clients that they serve. So whatever sector the charity's in, hopefully will have a positive impact on, you know, the clients within the charities, or the clients using the charity services. So yeah, essentially it's a mentoring program that colleagues at my company mentor colleagues or employees at charities. And initially we started with gender-based charities, so charities focused on gender equality or women empowerment, but now actually we've grown a lot from the first year. So we launched back in 2019, and we've grown tremendously, and now we're collaborating with the other D&I networks at the company I work for, as well as kind of joining forces with different charities across the whole spectrum. So yeah, that's what I'm up to.
Fantastic. That sounds amazing. And I can't wait for us all to hear a little bit more about that as we go along. So thank you. That was a great intro, Maya. And how about you, Yemi? It'd be great to hear your perspective, obviously working with Circle, but also how you've been an entrepreneur in your workplace as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. So yeah, I kind of frame it more in terms of the social entrepreneurship side, because that's kind of our focus at the Circle.
Yeah.
But mostly my experience has been, because I'm still in education, actually, I'm still a student. So I've really been trying to tackle youth unemployment, which is, I mean, figures came out literally like 2-3 days ago that 2/3 of young people are actually bearing the brunt of it during coronavirus. So what that looks like, in my opinion, is it's bit broader actually than just being in a corporate. I actually think it's just it's almost like a way of thinking that you can apply to different scenarios. So both in the private sector, but also in the public and even the third sector. And how I've done this more recently is with the Youth Futures Foundation, which is a relatively startup for a non-profit. I mean, it's like a year old, which was set up specifically for the purpose of tackling NEET. So by NEET, I mean those not in education, employment, or training, and trying to get them into the workplace, but also trying to keep them there and progress, because that was a lot of what we were focusing on. And I kind of joined initially just to work on their grants team, so deploying funding, but I recognized that actually like young people should be at the center of everything that we're doing, because if you think it's almost like education, you really need to ensure that whether it's a mentorship program, that you're working with those who are most impacted and know most about the problem. So what that looked like was working with the team to set up a youth advisory board called the Future Voices Group, which is it's essentially right now it's operating remotely. I'll put the link in here so you guys can have a look. But it's around trying to amplify young people's voices and elevate them beyond just a consultative body, but also to be involved in the formation of like policies that we're taking to government or lobbying like employers or recruiters about. So yeah, no, I think it's really around trying to spot a problem. So I spotted the problem of, hey, if we're a Youth Futures kind of foundation, it's in our name, where are young people in this organization? And then trying to bring about something tangible that you can add value to and work with others to try and hopefully bring that to the fore. But yeah, I definitely agree with Maya that it's around purpose and hopefully trying to inspire something beyond yourself.
Yeah, and I love that. And I love that you've almost taking something that seems like it already exists and looking for the issues there and how to plug them. So we'll explore that a little bit further. And thank you for sharing that, Yemi. And how about you, Olu?
Hi, thank you. I'm happy to be here too. I guess not to try, obviously coming last means you have to say something different. So, which I'm not, because I think it's pretty much the same as everybody else. Is what I describe an entrepreneur, an intrapreneur is essentially being an entrepreneur, but within your organization. And the way I've done that is largely by creating value, and that's what you do as an entrepreneur and then as an intrapreneur. You create value, and my value was based on my interests, which is around social mobility. And I describe social mobility as providing access to opportunities for disadvantaged people, so that they can progress in life, whatever career path that they take. So if that's my anchor of why I do things, I try and bring that to life in my day-to-day job, which is a consultant at KPMG. So the way I did that was two things. I created two programs. One, reverse mentoring, and essentially what reverse mentoring is where specifically at KPMG, how we implemented reverse mentoring was a Black junior colleague mentoring a senior white colleague, to bring two worlds that usually wouldn't meet together, and essentially learn from each other, whether it's around inclusion and diversity, whether it's around gender, whether it's around young people's skills and technology. But it was a way to turn on its head mentoring as the traditional sense of, the senior person mentoring the junior person. But in this instance, it empowers the young person or the junior person to mentor upwards, and gives the senior person insight into a world they might not be familiar with. And that's been really successful, and I can talk more about how we rolled it out across the UK firm, and it got a lot of traction from Richard Branson, from Virgin, and many other businesses to wanted to do the same program across their organizations. And then the second program that I launched as an entrepreneur is the Black Entrepreneur Awards that you mentioned earlier. And essentially that is a accelerator program for Black entrepreneurs. So essentially we provide 12 months support, mentoring, coaching, cash prize of £5,000 to the three winners, and an opportunity to learn more about business skills, leadership skills, and get more networks and PR from KPMG essentially. So using KPMG's resources to provide that network and exposure to Black entrepreneurs who are trying to scale their businesses. And we launched that in 2018, and we've got our second year this year in 2021, launching it again for Black entrepreneurs.
That's amazing. And I think one thing that's kind of woven in as a thread for all of your narratives around entrepreneurship, and I think because you all have such a strong passion and kind of desire to see social impact in the workplace, it's been great to see that you almost identified problems and thought about how you could solve it through being an entrepreneur in the workplace. So I'd love to hear more from you around how you take an opportunity, how you spot a gap, and how you then decide, actually, you know what, I'm going to do something about this, and what are the kind of maybe 3 initial steps that you would advise for somebody else who spotted a problem to take kind of as a next step. So maybe if I start with Maya, it'd be great to hear from you around how you identify the kind of problem statement for the charity program, and then what are the kind of next 2 or 3 things that a person should do once they've done that in their organization.
Definitely. So I joined the Gender Network quite early on when I joined the company that I'm at. So I joined back in September 2018. Very quickly joined the Gender Network, and there was an arm of it called the community, or the kind of citizenship corporate responsibility arm. And I'm very interested in kind of community, giving back to society and so on. So I immediately joined that kind of community or committee. And it was coming to the end of the year, so it was about November, and they were thinking about, oh, what can we be doing next year? So I went away, had a bit of a think, and it just kind of came to me that I'm so passionate about giving back to communities and societies. We have great resource here at the company that I work for. We have such amazing talent. There's so many kind of different colleagues within different areas that have so much to kind of give back. So I identified that as an opportunity. And again, to my point earlier, the fact that within the charity sector, there's perhaps less training opportunities available to employees. And I feel like within the charity sector, they do such amazing, incredible work, work very, very hard, have such an amazing impact. And I wanted to find something to give back to the employees. And again, it comes down to the trickle down effect of if we're positively impacting the employees, then they're going to do better at serving the clients or the service users that use their services. So that was really kind of the gap that I identified, and also my motivations behind it. In terms of my kind of few steps of getting started, so I developed a bit of a proposal. So I think I put down a proposal on 1 or 2 pages, thinking about, you know, outlining what my idea was, the steps that I would need to take to get it off the ground, a bit of a timeline for, you know, I want the mentoring program to launch in this month. So I actually chose September. And obviously we were right at the end of the previous year. So, you know, then we've got 9 months to lead up to launch, listing out all the kind of key milestones to take me up to that date. So I think that was kind of the key first steps, and then just taking it back to the co-chairs of the committee at that time, having a discussion with them, getting their feedback, and luckily they liked the idea, and then took it up to the co-chairs of the gender network. They loved the idea, and then just made it happen. I think one thing that was really clear from them was, you have this idea, now you need to make it happen. And I think this is really the difference between someone who has an idea and someone who makes it happen, because now I'm quite involved in the gender network. A lot of times people do have incredible ideas, but, you know, they expect someone else to do it for them. And I think what's really crucial is, if you have an idea and you believe in it, you're probably the best person to run with it and lead on it and make it a reality. And that's also so empowering as well, if you have that, you know, that ability to actually think of an idea and then make it happen. So the mentoring program is like my baby. It came from like an idea in my head, and it's grown and grown, and it's still growing. But yeah, a kind of a key thing I would say is, make sure that if you have the idea, you're the one who's, you know, going to be driving it forward and championing it, because I think there's no one better to do it than yourself. So yeah.
I love that. I love that. So almost engaging stakeholders early in the process and creating the collateral to be able to socialize it with them. But equally, to your point, being the passionate person and banging the drum on it. I love that. Thank you for sharing. And how about you, Olu? Because I'm mindful you also work in quite a large organization as well. What was your experience like starting out and trying to socialize the concept of both of your initiatives with your stakeholders?
Yes, thank you. So I'll speak in 2 parts. One, reverse mentoring, and second, Black Entrepreneur Awards. With reverse mentoring, I basically had an opportunity to, in a working session or working group, which was led by the CEO at the time, to talk about the African Caribbean network and ways to increase senior representation in the firm, because there was a lack of diversity amongst senior leaders. And that opened up a conversation to talk about how we can improve that the diversity in senior roles. And one of the things that came out was reverse mentoring. So I, off the back of that session, sent an email to the CEO, or one below the CEO, what we call him the managing director, and explained my ideas about why I think I should mentor him. And off the back of that, he really liked that. He really liked my kind of passion and my enthusiasm. And he just connected me to someone else who said, yeah, he'll be a great person to add to this program and start the whole reverse mentoring program. So you should just go ahead. So it was actually quite easy for me personally. I just sent an email, and then it just kind of, you know, just all of a sudden things started happening. And it was just me being consistent, one-to-ones with him, like meeting and talking about goals and intentions. What do we want to get out of the reverse mentoring program? Being really clear from the beginning. This is not a chin wag. It's not a conversation. It's not to make you look good or me. This is actually like, it's business. Like, we're trying to get things done. I want like, you know, 10% of increase in the number of Black employees in certain grades. I want you to kind of change the way that we recruit, change the way that we shortlist. So I was giving him real direction, impact in terms of like metrics, so that we can make that progress. But at the same time, I was giving him some understanding of personal experiences, which is really powerful, about my own experiences being a black colleague at KPMG, being the only Black person in my team at times. And then it just started to grow because he was really getting a lot of benefit from it. And then within 6 to 9 months, he got so much value from it that he actually said that this has been the most impactful kind of experience that I've had around diversity, because we know we do a lot of training, unconscious bias training, a lot of sessions trying to understand diversity, but never really understood what it meant until he connected with me. And that was a moment where things changed. And then he basically said, I want to sponsor this, and let's get the whole of the exec committee at KPMG to get a reverse mentor. And then we start with that group and then expand. And that's what we did. We went from one person, which is me, to 8 of the exec committee, to then the whole UK firm. And we have about like 200 now mentors mentoring. So that's reverse mentoring, and that took about a year, 2 years to kind of build to that level. And then it got a lot of exposure with the press. You know, as I mentioned, Richard Branson picked up on it, wrote an article about it, Lloyd's Bank, Accenture, EY. A lot of organizations started to find out about, we won a few awards and stuff like that. And it just started to, it's not a new concept. It's just like, we just framed it at, based on diversity. And then I think there was a lot of interest about how you roll that out across a wide organization. And then lastly, Black Entrepreneur Awards was quite interesting because, as you mentioned, I went to One Young World and I went to Bogota in Colombia. I didn't speak at that one, but I was part of the crowd, and then I got the idea from just the sessions that we were listening into. A lot of like young leaders there were speaking about their own projects, and I thought, why don't I kind of create something that for Black entrepreneurs, because you know there's a lack of diversity amongst entrepreneurs in general. But then I thought, why don't we use KPMG's resources to match the difficulties that Black entrepreneurs have, which is access to funding. And so I went back home after that on the inspirational events that I saw. And I actually did a video. I recorded myself at home right here, like this kind of like screen here, and wrote a video, not wrote a video, but like literally recorded a video and sent it to the CEO. And obviously that's nerve-wracking, and I've got a relationship with him, like a working one, but still it's a bit awkward, like sending a video. And at that time, obviously there wasn't COVID, so we didn't really do videos, like video calls is not normal and that sort of stuff. So, but anyways, I did it, and then obviously the file was too big, so I had to find a way to send it to him in the first place. But once I got through that challenge, he saw it, and he was really impressed by the fact that I actually took time to do a video and explaining the benefits of why we should launch a Black Entrepreneur Awards. You know, how does it align to the business of KPMG? What is the social benefit? How much does it cost? I basically did like a pitch, a 2-minute pitch. And then he was really impressed by it, and he said, let's do it. So I got my sponsor there, and then I went on to roll it across the UK firm, and got my team, was able to get funding, and that's a whole other process which I can explain a bit further after, but I'll pause so that Yemi can speak. So that's basically how I started.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you for sharing, because I think what's been great about both of your experiences is that your way of pitching your business idea or internal business idea was very different. So with Maya going in with like a kind of formal proposal and talking to the influential stakeholders, but then for you almost had 2 experiences. So one, almost trying with an iteration, proving that the concept worked with a smaller audience, and then scaling it up. And I like that you talked about the fact that it took 2 years to get it up and running to a point where it's 200 people, because actually sometimes some people take for granted how difficult it can be to get buy-in for projects. And I know we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go along. So that's a really good, honest account of the journey, and we'll get to that a little bit more. But also, you got to go to Bogota, and I really wanted to go, and I didn't get to go, so very jealous. That sounds amazing. But I also love that you came back inspired to do the Entrepreneurs Awards. And I think what's great about that is it's almost like understanding that intrapreneurship doesn't mean just doing one thing. Actually being able to prove that you can do one thing, and then coming back and thinking, what else can I do with the impact that I've made, and scaling up and creating something really beneficial was really good to hear about as well. So thank you for sharing that. I don't know if, Yemi, you've got any more to add as well from your point of view?
Yeah, no, definitely. So I think a theme is, like, for me, all of my experiences have been pretty serendipitous, but I have had a role in creating that. So even like how I joined the Circle, I initially got involved with because I applied to this event in China. It was just after graduation. So it was just before we were stopped from traveling. And it was like, it's Unleash. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of it. It's a similar concept to One Young World. So like people brought from all around the world to like go through like a problem solving kind of ideation workshop with just people you've never met before.
Right.
And it was at that conference slash summit event that I met the regional director of Circle's APAC hub. And that's how I got involved in the Circle, was just through. So I lived in London, but I just didn't know about intrapreneurship. I never heard of the word. I was like, what is it, like an entrepreneur? Like, but it was just through putting myself out there, through like, you know, wanting to pursue my kind of idea to the nth degree. So the initial idea being Project Access Midlands, because essentially I was, and I'm still really like interested in trying to tackle educational inequality, because I just saw it as like the root cause to youth unemployment, to be honest, in all aspects. And the fact that it was very hard for me myself to get into like a top university just because of, you know, the stigma about it. There was misinformation. I didn't really know. So if my brother hadn't gone into Manchester, I wouldn't have known how to write a personal statement. I wouldn't have known, like, you know, I could get to Warwick and etc. And I was like, okay, this is a problem I want to solve. So when I got to the uni, I was looking around and I saw like the university had its own mentorship program, but it was more top down. So i.e. professors going to X school, giving a lecture, saying apply. But I realized that actually a lot of the benefit was through student-led initiatives, i.e. is there a way we can use technology just to match mentors from similar backgrounds, you know, similar postcodes, similar lived experiences, so they know most about it. And yeah, one of my friends was working at this charity called Project Access, didn't know much about it really, but I saw that they were pretty big at the time. I mean, they had like hubs, so to speak, in the main London universities, and I think they had one in Durham. And I just saw an opportunity of, hey, it's not like there isn't any education inequality in the Midlands. I literally just wrote an email to the CEO. And the CEO, by the way, isn't like some really old guy. It's just like a guy 2 years older than me. Very idealistic as well. And at the time, I think he was just in his final year at King's, and they were based at King's Entrepreneurs kind of hub. So I wrote an email to him. I was like, hey, I think I can do this. Here are the people I've identified that are really interested. I mean, if I fail, at worst, it's good publicity for you. And he just was like, yeah, just run with it. So at the time, it was just myself and a banner going around campus trying to campaign about it. But eventually I got to build a team, like really small, lean team of people who are really interested in it. And from then, we kind of got the traction that we needed because we were able to show and validate the fact that we were getting more mentors than the university, and all of these people were doing it for free. So off their own free time, mentors weren't paying, mentees weren't paying. So it's just a really good kind of proof of concept. I saw that came up before, in order to validate that we could actually build this out. And I was graduating at the time, like 9 months. So I literally had a pretty fixed time frame to trial this and see how far we could go with it. And yeah, it went really well. I handed it over, so it's still going, even though I graduated, 2 years ago. Time flies. So yeah, no, it was really, really good experience for me, because even it kind of proved that, you know, if you've got an idea and you're willing to lead it, and this is at the time I was trying to juggle finals, trying to do extracurriculars, trying to do social life. So you will find time for the things that you're super passionate about. So I wouldn't worry about the questions I saw around, how do you juggle this? It's really, I mean, it's just, you become much better at managing your own time, but also if you're able to make your passion part of your day job, then it empowers you to work more productively at both, but also you're able to find those intersections between, you know, student life and, you know, project access, mentorship, education, and just bridge that together. So yeah, that was my experience.
I love that. And what's been great about hearing all of your different experiences is that your problem statements all started from a different point. So Yemi, you talked about having a very strong passion about the specific issue, and you almost started with that in mind and started looking at people who would support you to get there, and almost kind of, to Chris's analogy earlier around banging on the doors to get in, you almost had to do quite a lot of that, didn't you, to get stakeholders to help you. Whereas I think it was really interesting to hear Maya and Olu's perspective, where almost an opportunity may have arisen, and then going to actually think, what can I do with this opportunity and create something that will be beneficial? So that's great. And it's also great to hear that you're doing that in universities as well, because for a lot of the students who are joining, they may not necessarily see the opportunity to use their universities or schools as a catalyst to drive social impact. So thank you. 3 very different perspectives, but really helpful to hear. My next question, and just to let everybody know, the Q&A is open, so please do share your questions. I'll be opening up with some of yours shortly. But this is quite a loaded one, because working in a large organization myself and being a keen and avid intrapreneur myself, I know that the road to get support from stakeholders is not easy. I'd like to hear a little bit more from you around where you've experienced any resistance from stakeholders. Maybe you had some closed doors where people said, sorry, I can't help you with this. And how did you navigate those rejections? I don't know if anybody willingly wants to take this question or not.
Yeah, I can talk about it from a kind of different perspective. So generally, I didn't face that much pushback from within my organization. But actually, when I first had the idea, I had to obviously reach out to loads of different charities. And actually, because it was just an idea, the very first time I was reaching out to charities, some of the charities just didn't really get it. And I think that there's still a stigma around, big corporates. I think there is a stigma around, from like other sectors, I think there's a stigma around corporates, particularly some more than others, around, maybe the type of culture within different companies. And I did experience some pushback from some charities that I reached out to. And I guess it was a bit disheartening, because, when you've got this idea and you're super passionate about it and you can see the vision, and then kind of the charity or a charity that you want to support and partner with, I guess they don't share the vision, or they think that the company that you work for, maybe they don't want to kind of partner with you. A bit difficult. But yeah, from like an internal stakeholder perspective, it's generally been really, really positive. And at the moment, as I mentioned earlier, we're looking to collaborate with the different D&I networks. And we're actually going global, which is really exciting. So in our second year, we kind of went UK-wide, but actually this year we're working on going global. And so far we haven't experienced pushback from the kind of global colleagues that we're reaching out to. So yeah, less kind of difficulty internally, but definitely to some of those external stakeholders in terms of some of the charities we reached out to, a bit of pushback. But I think what's really important through the mentoring program is I never want it to seem like, we're going in and we're like saving the charities, or with, this like savior complex. I never want it to be like that. And I think with mentoring, it's absolutely a mutually beneficial partnership. I think, while the employees at my company are going and mentoring the charity employees, I definitely think that from our perspective, we have so much to learn from the charity sector. And, from feedback that I've had from my mentors that have been on the program and engaged in the program, they've said that they've learned so much from this and from their charity partners or the charity mentees. So yeah, I think it's getting across that kind of narrative and saying, we're not here to like save you, because it's not like that at all. This is a mutually beneficial partnership. We have a lot to learn. We also have a lot to give, and vice versa. So I think it's, when you encounter a setback, I know it was really disheartening for me, but I think just understanding, coming from a place of like understanding, and also using that as feedback to think, okay, why did they not kind of say yes? And using that to think about kind of the angle that you want to approach it for future charity partners. Yeah.
I love that. So very empathetic in the view around it and seeing how best you can work with them to come up with a solution. That's great. Thank you, Maya. And I saw Olu unmuted. Did you have anything to add there as well?
Yes. That was really good, Maya. I appreciate that one. What I would add to that, from my perspective, is one, securing a senior sponsor is so key. If you don't have a senior sponsor, whether it's exec level or board level, it's really tough to fight the, as Chris mentioned earlier, the corporate immune system. And what we mean by the corporate immune system is the middle management, who they don't really care about ideas, they just care about targets and their own kind of like bottom line, their P&L, their area of work. They're not really that creative. They don't really want to take too much risk. They're just there to do their job and maybe obviously get promoted, etc. But they don't really want to do like blue sky thinking and take on more risk and add more to their workload. That's middle management in general. So getting a sponsor is really important, and the challenges I faced was perception that I was spending too much time working on my side hustles than my actual day job, which there wasn't a manual for me to kind of say how much do I need to split my time. I had to kind of do trial and error. So I would, for anyone listening who wants to start their own projects or own programs within their organization or even outside, I will be mindful of how you communicate the amount of time it takes outside of your day job to do, and how much impact it will have on your day job, if any. Secondly, I would have, time to communicate what you're trying to do to your core team. That's something I didn't really do that well. So like when I was going off to as they called it, a secret meetings, because people didn't know what I was doing, it just looked like I was just going off or not being proactive in my work and stuff like that. And essentially I just didn't communicate to my team that I was doing this, this social project. And I think just getting clarity from your team and let people know what you're doing, because you can also get volunteers from that conversation. People might say, oh, I actually really like what you're doing there. Can I support you anyway? Is there any way I can offer a hand? So that's the second thing I'll say. And then the final thing in terms of like stakeholders who are challenging, and it can get like this sometimes if people just don't like the idea and don't like you spending time working on it, because there's a lot of other things to be doing. If you've got clients that you're on projects that you're working on, if worse comes to worse, sometimes it's just moving teams. Like if you're really passionate about your idea and really like you really want it to succeed, sometimes you have to move teams to and work in another group or another team where they value your ideas and give you space to make it fruition, like basically bring it to life essentially. And sometimes you might have to take those risks to move from your current team to another team that provides you that opportunity to grow and nurture the ideas. So that's the three things I would say.
It's interesting that you talk about that, because for those who are also looking for roles in organizations, this is something to be scoping out. If you almost have an entrepreneurial mindset, thinking about how you bring that as part of your interview process and talking to your business around how they perceive such opportunities is really important, because you'll be able to get a sense from the beginning what kind of support they'll be able to offer you. So I think it's great that you've raised that, Olu, because a lot of people may not necessarily think about that as part of their application process. But also mindful that there will be people who are already in jobs. So it's great that you talked about how you manage some of those politics as well.
Can I just add as well, is that it is part of you, so you shouldn't be shy to talk about it in interviews. If you're applying for new jobs, you should bring, as people say, your whole self to work. So that means talking about your personal interests, talking about the things that make you passionate and how you can use some of that to support the goals of the business, whether it's in inclusion and diversity, whether it's social mobility, gender, LGBTQ, it could be anything, but as long as you can connect your passion to the job You can even use it as a tool to talk about how you can get pay rises or increase your negotiation tactic to get more money for the role that you want to do, because essentially you're providing more benefit, you're providing more value, which isn't always, isn't always so clear cut when it comes to pay, your pay packet. Like, they don't say, oh, your intrapreneur budget is X and then your salary is Y. It doesn't go like that. So you've really got to sell yourself and explain how much value you think your idea will have, and then therefore the value you think the business will pay you as well.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm mindful we've got to open up for Q&A shortly, but Yemi, it'd be great to hear from you, especially from the student standpoint, because obviously you've had some work experience and also studying. What skills do you think that intrapreneurship has brought you as you've been kind of developing in your own journey, and what kind of things have really kind of helped build those as you've been on your journey towards intrapreneurship?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So the good thing about being an entrepreneur is that you really get the whole tool set of skills that an entrepreneur would get, because you're essentially doing this. It's actually, in my opinion, hard, because you're also facing, friction from your team. If, for example, you haven't communicated it effectively and they don't really know what you're doing. For me, like, problem solving is a huge one, because if you're an entrepreneur, a new entrepreneur, you're probably on your own, and so naturally you have to just figure things out for yourself. But one that I really learned is listening skills. I think that's super important. So I definitely agree that you need to get out there. Don't be scared about telling others about your idea for sake that they think they'd steal it or something. Actually, it's just a good way for you to get that feedback at all levels of the organization, which is really useful. In terms of like how I try to kind of put it into practice, I approach it slightly differently, actually. So in the charity sector, rejections are like second nature, just because like when you're trying to like, whether it's like ask for either partnerships or funding, they live or die by their reputations and their name. But what I tried to do was, as a student, you can sometimes be like not taken that seriously, or like you don't have that much experience, or you're a bit idealistic. But if you're able to kind of use your track record to get into the rooms where decisions are made, so for example, try to become a trustee of another charity or a small one also working in your space, you get plugged into that sector. So I'll just share like a link to the Young Trustees Movement. They share lots of opportunities to do with, in your spare time, it takes 1 to 2 hours a week to be a trustee, but you learn so much about, how a decision is actually made, what does governance mean, instead of just being an implementer of your idea, you get a better sense of what are the considerations all of these execs have to take into account, so you have more empathy for their point of view, but then you're also able to frame your business idea in a way that appeals to them in your specific sector. So that's how I got involved in the RSA. I got referred from my boss at Project Access. I didn't know what the RSA was, but essentially it's a huge charity which has existed for over 250 years, and they have a lot of funding, endowment funding, and I just thought, this could be used to really help the most underserved, but I can't kind of convey that from external. So why don't I involve myself actually within that organization? So I just did a bit of research about them, became a fellow, and then within 6 months joined the council team, which is essentially the team that decides on grant funding and how that's allocated. And then within another 6 months, a trustee opportunity came up within that organization. They'd never really had a trustee younger than 25 before. And I was like, I just put myself forward. I was like, hey, I think I've got a lot of ideas. I've got a lot of energy. Can I get involved in that capacity? And yeah, they brought me on board, and that has led to a lot more in terms of what I can do, whether it's helping others who I know are working, doing like the hard hours, but don't necessarily see where the funding is going to come from. and just link them to that opportunity. So I think, yeah, there's all of these different kind of ways you can get involved, but it's definitely around being like able to work and build relationships and maintain them, because you need allies wherever you are, just in terms of people who are willing to back you when you're not there. So definitely the sponsor point, but also people who, you know, might not necessarily see the work you're doing, but are willing to kind of stick their head out and say, you know, I vouch for this person. And that's what I had with Anna Gross, who was the CEO of Project Access at the time, which helped me kind of get my foot in the door, even as a student, and I'm still a student. So yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think one common thread, just hearing your narrative, and Maya's and Olu's, is just believing in your source. That's probably the best way to say it. Just having so much belief in your idea and what you're actually proposing, because, you know, to your point around getting people to help you, Maya, and then, you know, Olu getting the most senior stakeholder, Yemi, people actually falling behind and supporting you. People will only support you if they believe that you are confident in what you're doing and they can get behind your vision. But if you're not strong in your vision and understand it, it's very difficult to then get people to buy into it. So thank you all so much. Very honest perspectives, and it's great to hear them. I have 10 million questions of my own, but I'm mindful we have an audience who do also have questions. We've had one from Nick, and he's asked this to everybody. So anyone who'd like to answer first, he said, what is better in your experience? Is it better to ask for permission first or ask for forgiveness later when you're launching your intrapreneurship project? Who would like to take this one?
I can start. So what was the beginning? Ask for what first?
Ask for permission first or ask for forgiveness later?
I would ask for forgiveness later. And the reason, and you have to obviously at this context, you have to think about the business that you operate in, and in the business I operate in professional services, they don't fire you like just because you make a mistake or you failed or anything like that. So I know that I'm not going to get fired, like unless I do something really stupid, which I'm not. So I would ask for forgiveness later, because in the context that I'm in, the big challenge is when you actually ask for permission at the beginning is that you don't actually ask the right person for permission. You actually ask the wrong person because you don't know. You're just starting off, you talk to Risk, and Risk are like, nah, you can't do this. They give you X, Y, Z reasons why you can't do. So if I spoke to Risk about Black Entrepreneur Awards, like before speaking to the CEO, I wouldn't have got far at all. They would have shut it down like almost after my second email, probably. So I think sometimes you just go ahead by doing it and showing that there is some sort of value, like create some value, or maybe quick win, or a reason why there's a demand for the project, the program, whatever that your initiative is, so that people can see, oh, okay, there's legs to this. Oh, okay, it makes sense. Oh, okay, I can see where he's going with that. So you've got some like prototypes, some dummies, some data, something that's tangible that you can go back to people who are naysayers, people who are Risk, to say, oh, it works because I've tried it so far in this small cohort. I've spoken to XYZ people. There's a demand for it. This is why. So I would always, not always, but again, being very calculating, just try and take the risk, and then ask for permission later. But then by the time you've taken the risk, you'll probably have a bit of a wider stakeholder map to understand who is the right person to ask that permission to. Because again, back to my original point, sometimes you just ask the wrong person and then they shut you down too quickly. So yeah, ask for forgiveness.
Okay, thank you for that perspective. Would anyone like to share a slightly different view or balanced one? Would love to hear either of your thoughts, Maya and Yemi.
So no, I basically agree with most of what Oli said. But so I think, but I approach it from slightly different perspective. So I'd say ask for forgiveness for sure, because the best way to get people to say yes to you is when you have some sort of track record or something that you've done that kind of proves that you're actually putting your actions where your mouth is, basically, especially in like anything to do with professional services, I'd say. So like for me in legal services and stuff, a lot of what I've been doing is like pro bono legal work, but it's because I see the value of what technology could provide. So for example, we at the time we were having quite a lot of problems in terms of getting barristers' chambers or solicitors to like allow us to come into their offices and say, hey, like, here's a bunch of 15-year-olds, tell them how to become lawyers. Whereas like once COVID happened, it actually meant that we were able to host like online model law commissions where we almost, I mean, we were called Big Voice London, but we were going like basically transporting all of these young people across the country to really hear from people who are at the front line, whether it's a family's chamber or someone who's a corporate solicitor, and giving them really clear insights. But we were only able to do that because we came up with the creative idea of, you know, saying, hey, this provides a really good opportunity for us to really tap into social media, whether it's Twitter, and get those QCs or whoever to engage with us online, because young people use, you know, social media platforms, and all of these law firms and barrister chambers have had to come online for their clients anyway. So we were just trying to leverage that as much as possible. So I think that's probably a really good way of asking for forgiveness if things go wrong. But even if it did go wrong, you know, it's just, we're a charity trying to do good, so it's not the end of the world.
No, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. We also have another question. So this was actually a follow-up question from Winnie in response to your introductions. My namesake, Winnie. So Yemi, when you introduced your initiative that you were working on, you mentioned untraditional students. Winnie just wanted to ask, do the initiatives that support untraditional students also address challenges faced by international students, graduates, particularly from a non-Russell group of universities? I think these are serious issues. So I think she's trying to find out, does your target audience also include international students as well?
Yeah, no, so I think I answered it. Like, it involves, so initially we started with Russell Group, the most elite, just because we were like, this is the biggest asymmetry between, you know, education and equality. Like, getting into like a really top Russell Group university was kind of what we saw as immediately having that impact of hopefully building that cyclical kind of solution, whereby if we're able to get, you know, state school educated or people from minority backgrounds who are really interested in getting into those universities, into those, then they would provide a support network. Because we found a huge problem was around dropout rates as well, and just a lack of support, and mental health is really important now, especially in COVID. And we thought if we're able to build a kind of hub, and we called it like a campus team of, you know, students who kind of knew about the problem, knew about what, you know, student life actually entails, and were able to kind of redress the information gap that we found in terms of you just not knowing how to write a personal statement, how to perform in interviews, you know, how to even do well, and by do well, get a first or engage in extracurriculars. We thought these were all soft skills that should be open really to everyone. So we did start with Russell Group, but we branched out to non-Russell Group. So I mean, I was based in the Midlands, so I started at Warwick where I was a student, but I then worked with Coventry, Birmingham University, just to try and build that, and even vocational. So we started to work with apprentices, because we thought, look, there's a lot of different alternative ways people can learn, and one way is better than the other. We're just socialized, I think, going to uni is like the be all and end all when it's not. So yeah, no, that's kind of what I was doing there.
Fantastic, thank you so much. We've had one more question come through, which was, I did have it and then now I've suddenly lost it. I think it was for Olu. Oh yes, Olu. Can you please explain more about reverse mentoring and what would be the best approach to kick this off? And that's from Olajumoke. Thank you.
Yes, cool. So how do I kick off? How do you kick off reverse mentoring? The best approach to kick off reverse mentoring. So the first step I would do is basically understand what is your business goals or your business strategy as a firm or as a local society, like whether you're doing it at a local level, so your team, or you're doing it at a department level, or you're doing it at a firm level. I did mine at a firm level, and the goal of the firm was to increase inclusion and diversity among senior colleagues, but also just increase inclusion. Well, make the firm a more inclusive workplace. That was the goal. So at a firm level, we understood the goal. So how do we get to that goal? Reverse mentoring was the driver. It was a program to address the need that we needed to connect the junior colleagues with senior colleagues. So once we had the solution, you then start going into a sponsorship, as I mentioned. Who's going to be the flag bearer? Who's going to sponsor it? So once you've got your goal, you've got your solution, and you've got your sponsor, then you go into budget. You then decide how much money and resources is required to launch the program, reverse mentoring. And once you've got an idea of the budget, then you go into resources and team. How big is the team? How small is the team? Who do we need from which parts of the business to launch it? And once you've got that, you can then execute on your plan because you've got those 5 steps kind of ready. And just a note on reverse mentoring, it doesn't have to be focused on ethnicity. It could be on gender. It can be on technology. It could be on anything. So that's always, you always decide the scope of like mentoring or reverse mentoring or your program at the beginning of whether it's on the goal that you're trying to achieve based on your solution. So after you've done all of that and you're at the plan stage, you then have to essentially work with your team to turn that plan into reality. So doing the day-to-day project management. So setting up meetings, like weekly or monthly meetings with your teams, allocating and delegating roles. So who's going to be your marketing person? Who's going to be your events person? Who's going to be the matching person to match pairs, like the mentors and mentees? Who's going to be the admin person? Who's going to be the network person to bring different people together? So you've got to allocate roles, and once you've got that again, then you start obviously doing the matching process, and then you go into matching them, and then doing the launch event, which is where you bring everybody together, and you match, and the mentors and mentees meet together and kick off the program. And you can either have confidentiality agreements between mentors and mentees so that they know what how to approach the relationship. And then you have some training as well. So some mentees, junior colleagues might not have done it before, so they might be a bit nervous to start mentoring a senior person. So it can be quite daunting. And so you essentially might want to do some sort of training for junior colleagues to feel confident about their role. And then you let them do their one-to-ones and book it with their mentors and mentees. And it will run monthly or every 6 weeks and so on. And then that's the program. Hope that's a high-level overview. Obviously, there's more detail behind it, but there's more information on Google. You just type in reverse mentoring, and you'll see some of my articles, and you see a bunch of other organizations who've done it. And there's not just one standard approach to launch a reverse mentoring program. There's many different ways. I'm sure Maya's got her own way of mentoring, launching her own mentoring program, which will be different to mine. So I just wanted to give you a perspective from how I did mine.
I'm glad you've referenced that, actually, because that was going to be my next question to finish off with Maya, because I'm mindful you bring an external perspective in with the recipients of the program being outside of your organization. So it'd be great to hear a bit more about anything else you'd add from that standpoint and what factors you had to consider in bringing external people to the table. And thank you, Ollie.
Yeah, definitely. I think definitely a bit more due diligence. So the fact that we are, collaborating with charities, we had to do diligence in terms of figuring out whether they're actual charities, whether the company that I work for was happy for us to collaborate with them and work with them. I'm quite lucky at my company, there's a whole kind of portal where you can actually check and get charities verified and checked through. So that's very, very easy, but I can imagine in maybe some smaller companies who are still quite risk averse, they might not have those kind of tools in place to help you actually do some of that due diligence. One thing that I did really want to call out, and I think listening to both Olu and Yemi on today's session, is that I think it's really important to recognise the people that have been around us to support us. So for me, with my mentoring program, obviously it was my idea at the beginning, but actually I had a few team members, a few colleagues who also volunteered to really help me get it off the ground. So I had an events lead, I had a comms lead, and that was at the beginning. And then now I've grown, so there's like 7 other colleagues that I'm leading. So one of my team members is leading the global expansion. So I think what's really, really key, and I guess what I want to leave everyone with, is to, I couldn't have done all of this on my own. While we talk about this incredible mentoring program that I've probably won the award, the Rising Star Award for. I think I really want to call out the fact that there are so many people behind the scenes who have also shared the vision and helped me build the vision and grow the vision as well. And they also really deserve that recognition too.
I love that. Thank you so much. And I think that's a perfect summary of why intrapreneurship is a lot more beneficial in that space. Obviously, it's not to compare apples and pears for intrapreneurship and entrepreneurship, but to your point, using your internal tool to be able to vet charities might not have been so easy when you're just running something on your own outside, and also to get access to colleagues who can help you, whereas externally you might have to hire those people and actually get people to help you without necessarily having that access to that resource. So perfect end to our Q&A. I just wanted to say a massive thank you once again to our phenomenal speakers. You've been super candid, super honest, but also very inspirational. And it's just been so great to hear about your ideas. We could continue this for 10 years, but I'm mindful of time. So I'll hand over to Bukola, who will start to wrap us up. Thank you.
Thanks, Winnie, and thanks, guys. I've been frantically taking notes. I think the one thing that's jumped out for me is, apart from the whole permission versus, being a rebel. So I loved your response, Olu, but I love how you talked about communicating and listening. So carrying everyone with the journey, letting them know what you're working on, and also having to manage this as well as your day job. So lots of things for me to think about, obviously, with Accelerate Black Futures and anything that we decide to do in our own organization. So thank you, guys. That's been really, really beneficial. And I hope people have taken lots of notes and will decide to kind of do that in their own careers and their own organizations as well. So thanks, guys. So just a few reminders for everyone. So again, thank you so much for joining. I hope it's been beneficial. Just wanted to plug our next event. So all around personal branding, especially on the virtual front. So we've got Gloria Dozian, who's our visibility queen on LinkedIn, talking to us about how we can jazz up our LinkedIn profiles. So do make sure you sign up. We'll have that on LinkedIn as well. But if you head on down to accelerateblackfutures.com, all of our events are on there for you to be able to sign up. All of our previous events are on there for you to be able to listen to as well. We also have open roles on the team. So we've got a fantastic team supporting Winnie and I at the minute, but we're also looking for a couple more people. So again, head on down to our website if you're interested. We've got a role around logistics and admin with regards to our events. We've got a role around video editing. We're trying to get a lot more of our online content fit for purpose. So if you've got any budding skills in that department, please hit us up. We're a lovely bunch, and you see a slide with everyone on the team, we all do this on the side of the desk. So we run predominantly on passion. So if you were wondering why we're all doing this, it's literally just passion that we're working off of. So if you're interested in wanting to join us, please do head on down and take a look. We also want to hear from you in terms of what you want to hear about, topics, what you want us to cover, speakers you'd like us to get on board. So there'll be an email that goes out after the event to ask feedback on the event, but we also ask anything that you'd love to hear about. So please do respond and let us know, and we will get cracking to try and find either the speaker, or if it's something that we have expertise in, we would love to cover that. I'm just going to hand over quickly to Chris, if he's got any last calls to action with regards to Circle.
Yeah, thanks, B. I mean, just to extend my thanks to the panel, fantastic stories and really inspiring. And I think that, you know, the key thing for me, well, the two key things, one is that there is no one way to do intrapreneurship or entrepreneurship. People will come at it from so many different angles, with so many different ways of making a success. So, you know, whatever works for you and however you go on your journey, someone's probably done something very similar before. So, you know, there'll always be kind of a slightly different way to do it, but definitely lean on those individuals as you can and find them. I think the other thing for me was just, you know, there are obviously a lot of challenges to launching an entrepreneurial offering, but ultimately it's also a really positive opportunity to harness your entrepreneurial skills. And if you have that passion and that idea, but in a job that is a little bit more secure and at an organization that can deliver that at scale. So, you know, it's a great sort of, I don't want to call it a middle ground because it's definitely not, but it is an opportunity to look at both sides for those who maybe, you know, launching your own organization isn't necessary for you or isn't right for you at this time. So yeah, a couple of key takeaways there, but big thanks to the group. I think just in terms of next events, you know, I think the best way is to follow us on our LinkedIn page. We do have kind of multiple events going on in various different regions all the time. One coming up in April that we're looking to organise is one around women in entrepreneurship, and there's some great stories about some inspiring people doing some great things for organisations that way. But also, you know, we do have programs and offerings, as I mentioned at the start, around kind of to learn a bit more and get more of a practical experience as well as events. So you know, look us up on LinkedIn, follow our page. There's lots of information on there all the time, and yeah, hopefully see you joining our movement and getting involved with your own entrepreneurial story in the near future. But yeah, my thanks again, and thanks to the guys at Accelerate Black Futures for putting on such a brilliant event. I've really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you so much, Chris. And just so you know, in the chat, I think there's lots of links being shared. I think Yemi put quite a few links, so make sure you head on down and take a look at those. I don't think they save, so there's quite a few cool things that Yemi put on there. I've taken a copy and paste straight away on my side, so just to remind you all. And lastly, I will just, in addition to the speakers tonight, a huge thank you to you guys. So thank you, Maya, Olu, Yemi. Thanks, Chris. It's been really great working with you guys in the run up to today, and I've learned a lot, and I'm sure lots of people have taken, you know, quite a few tips away. And I'd love to say a huge thank you to the Accelerate Black Futures team as well. Like I said, we run on passion. So Winnie and I started this, and then I think we were shining in our passion as we talked to our friends, and then a bunch of people jumped on board, and we've had many a late night just kind of talking through what this covers, and we've all got quite a number of children amongst us as well, so we're doing this along the side with families and homeschooling, as you can all imagine. So I just wanted to say a huge thank you to everyone on the team. It's been great, and we've taken a lot from this session, and there's loads more to come. So like Chris said, if you just keep close to our socials, we'll keep you up to date with future events. And miraculously, we've got 5 minutes to spare, so I appreciate it's a much longer session, so I'm quite keen that we've been able to finish on time tonight. But thank you everyone again for all of your questions and for participating and for joining us tonight. Great, thanks everyone.